So this is a big 6 foot, I think it's a 6 foot brush hog. This looks like a king cutter brush hog, one from like the early 80s. I got this at an Amish auction. I got it from my buddy and I bought it as is, and it is it's well used, but it needs to be serviced before I can give it to my buddy. So let's fix this thing. That ain't right. Whew. And this crane's proven itself pretty useful. So the way these brush hogs work is based on really centrifugal force. So you see how these are fully extended right now? So normally these fold in if they hit something, and a lot of times they default like this. And when you're looking at it, you're like, man, that's a goofy ass blade setup, but it's really not. It's designed that way. And when this thing spins out centrifugally, see how it spins out? Just like that. You do not want to get your finger caught in one of these. Actually, I knew someone that got ran over by one of these things. They survived, but they lost their leg. But we got to figure out why the gearbox is leaking. And look at all this stuff. That ain't good. Thing's all wrapped up. And there's even metal wire here. Ah, shit. I finally got the collar free, and we can see the shaft out of the gearbox now. Man, there's a lot of shit wrapped around there. Got 4 piles here. Wire. I'm pretty sure that's a garbage bag. Soaker hose, and I believe that's part of like a tire bead. So I'd love to know the story here. Someone didn't give a What the f? How is that possible? That was such a bang. Amy actually just came out and asked me if I was okay, because it sounded like a gunshot. Piece of shit. All right, power washer took paint off of this thing, which is all right. But you know, rotating this, I mean, I don't really feel any play. It feels pretty tight. So I think the internals are probably good. I think like I said, I'm pretty sure we lost that bottom main seal, that oil seal, because of all the garbage and trash and shit that the person ran over. But for the most part, you know, everything seems good, spins tight. So I think we're going to be okay and not have to rebuild the internals. But I want to take the input shaft cap off and the output shaft cap off, and at least see what's going on. I believe the input shaft, I think it's one assembly. So I think when I pop this out, I think the entire assembly comes with it, where on the output shaft, on the output side, I think just the cover comes off. And I think it's designed that way because you can blow oil seals quite often. So but I wanted to give this thing a hearty look over because, you know, Eric's my buddy and I want him to be, you know, brush hogging safely and most importantly, reliably. So let's take a gander. So this is an Auburn gear. This is an old American product, so everything should be 100% standard and it should be American. These are 9/16, so let's zip these off. Came off pretty easy. There we go. I think I should be able to pull this whole thing. Let's see how much oil is left in this thing. I don't think there's really much of any. So I could do, but get my little lady finger in here. There we go. We're on to something. You know, the gasket's moving pretty freely. There we go. We got her now. Oh. All right. You know, gear oil is stinky. Old gear oil is extra stinky. It's pretty dirty. So I know they said the gear oil is dirty, but my buddy Eric, I know he poured new gear oil in this thing and it leaked all out the bottom. So, man, I wonder how dirty it was before he added new gear oil. So that's the end bearing I was talking about, which sits on this shaft. And there's your gear. All the teeth are there, that's good. Bearing feels tight. And so here's your output shaft, which goes to the output of the brush hog, the blades itself. And it's tight. Yeah, everything's tight. Eric made out good here. Eric made out good. You know, this is American product. They put Japanese bearings in, so you can see Japan on there. Just tells you how good Japanese quality is. Well, that's cool. Okay, so we have to take this cover. This is, you know, the gear casing cover off. So taking the gear casing cover off is pretty simple. The easiest way to do it is with some needle nose. So you got a retaining clip here. What you're going to do is squeeze this retaining clip almost like a snap ring. You got to wiggle it. That wiggled pretty free, probably because it was lubricated. And it just sits there. So with that sitting there like this, there's an internal bearing inside here. I can pop this cap off. It's going to be easier to let this sit in my vise and pop the shaft out. And actually it wants to come already, but it should be in there pretty good because of the bearings. So I can try to hit it, but I don't think it's going to work. Believe it or not, it's moving. I'm surprised, but that's actually good because it tells me that bearing didn't get too hot or anything, and there was no major rust built up. Ooh. Okay, that came out really nice. Eric lucked out. So, let's put the cap aside. You have this bearing here, which is on the input shaft, and then you have an end bearing, which is inside the gear housing. So you have all that horsepower on this shaft, and it's protected by these bearings. And this bearing's good. I can feel it. I mean, no play. Yeah, this is a good bearing. Eric made out really good. Looking at all the teeth here, no chips in any of the teeth. This is a hardened input gear, so. And see how this slides? There's a lock ring here. So in the event something catastrophic did happen, you could knock that lock ring off. I'm surprised there's no lock ring on the other side, but there's no groove for it either. Interesting. That's sliding really nice. I'm impressed. Okay, so we're going to leave that aside. Our main goal is to punch out this oil seal right here and put a new one in. So I bought two kits. So this is a 50 horsepower output shaft seal kit, which I believe is what I need. What's this one? These the same? No, not. Alright, so oh man, that's it. That's like spot on. This is not the right size. Yeah, this is spot on. Test fitting this. Yeah, that's the right fit. So this must be the right fit on the other one. No. You know, this top seal is still pliable actually, which is good. You know, I mean, these seals are built to last, but yeah, this seal is still pretty pliable. So we'll have to check the bottom one. The bottom one must be damaged. Okay. I think I have to punch this out from the outside. I think. I feel a lip. I think that lip is where it's supposed to bottom out on. We'll confirm. Let me go punch this thing out. This thing's on there good. I'm surprised. Alright, we got it. We got it. It's just a mother, but we got it. Woo! Oh, it's silicone in there. Got paint. That's just heavy paint, okay. Look at that. So it just sits in there. I'll be damned, it just sits in there. Well, not that I don't like that. I mean, obviously it worked for 60 years. I'm going to clean up the inside of this. I'm going to apply a lot of gear grease, and then I'll slip this in there until I think I got it right. Yeah, it's pressed in there, so we're going to have to clean this and then try to get it to swell up. That's a better sealing surface, huh? Right. You can use a block of wood, you can use a seal installation tool, which is, you know, just a hunk of aluminum. And I need to get one of those. For now, I'm going to use my flat piece of aluminum. We're going to tap this in lightly. I'm going to check to make sure it's going in evenly. It's a little off. Drive her home. There you go. You can hear it when it hits the cast. And that is a good tight fit, which is exactly what you want. Looks good. Looks real good. Cool. All right, with that on, we can simply put this puppy back on. I'm going to lube up this shaft a little bit with some of the old gear oil. Nice. Yeah, that went in good. Nice. Gear grease is very thick too, so. Alright. Let's see if we can punch the bearing home. Going in nice. Sometimes you have to invert it and pound the shaft in, but it's going in pretty smooth. So I can't get it all the way home the way it is, so I'm going to pound it on the rear side of the shaft. We'll check in to make sure we're okay. Yeah, I still got like at least an 1/8 inch. And it looks like we're just about there. Oh yeah, can you hear that? Hear that done? That means you're home. So now that we're home, we can take our little lock ring we have here, or retaining ring. They probably call it a retaining ring. It's almost like a big ass snap ring, but it doesn't have the snap ring holes. So I'm calling it a retaining ring. But I'm sure everyone on YouTube will correct me. And you're going to slip it in there. You're going to want to make sure it's in that groove. Need my flashlight. I think my eyesight is going a little bit from the welding. So I've been doing a fair bit of welding. Yeah, that retaining ring's in there. It's in good. So, oh yeah. Well, the input shaft is done. This thing's great. I'm really happy with that. Let's switch a Rooney and then do the output shaft. So this is your output shaft. What it should look like is after we take this cap off, which has these 4 bolts on here, and we're gonna have to get new hardware for Eric because this is bad. But we're gonna take this off, and then we should be able to slip this right off of the output shaft. And the exact same thing as the input shaft. You should have 2 bearings in there. Those bearings should be pressed in here, so this whole shaft should be pressed in. So I should be able to slip this cover completely off without removing the shaft. At least that's the hope, and I'm nearly positive that's it, but I haven't done one of these in a very long time, so. So my SD card was full of my camera, so you guys didn't see me popping this off all the way, but it came off real nice. This seal is smoked. It is, it's not pliable anymore. It's hard as a rock, and it is nicked on. It looks like it's nicked. I mean, there's so much shit and debris, and there's garbage, like actual trash bag material here. Where's my pick? Yeah, so if I take my pick, I mean, there's, here, I'll put it in my hand, and then I'm knocking it into my hand so you can see. But I got, you know, a ton of shit coming out from this seal. Like, That's part of like a trash bag or a fence or something. So this thing was wrapping. Oh, there's a ton of it in here actually. There you go. There's more. Yeah, so this stuff was probably spinning around, and this thing's spinning at 540 RPMs, and it just cooked it. It worked it. So anyway, let's punch this out. Or maybe you have to chisel it out like the other one. I actually cut a relief cut in this seal with my die grinder, and then I just punch on it. This seal was incredibly stuck. Like, I stopped recording because I was like, what the fuck's going on here? But I should have it now. I believe I got it all loosened up. Well, as loose as I can. Oh, mother. Yeah, see, I got the inner out, and then the seal, which is blown apart. And then here's the cage. They got this green shit on there. I guess that was probably like a Loctite or something. Yeah, so I did one fuck up right here. I went a little too far with my die grinder. And that's on me, but it's okay. I'll make it look beautiful. But you got all the sealing surface, so it really doesn't matter. But let me clean this up and then show you how that looks. Cleaned up the inner surface of that seal, so that looks pretty good. Not too bad. My nick is still right there, but this thing won't even care. Everyone has their own opinion on their methods and their practices, and I like using gear grease to install these things. Just like the cushion the grease gives you during installation. A lot of guys don't like using it. They don't like it. They say you're contaminating the oil. But, I mean, like, if a gearbox can't take a little bit of grease, I mean, you don't want that gearbox. Alright, lube up that seal just like we're packing a bearing. And we are ready for install. So these outer lips go to the inside. Now, when this thing gets installed, I'm just looking at the shaft here, is how much protrusion do I have? Like, to me, I'm thinking, like, why wouldn't I just send this all the way home? But if I send it all the way home, am I going to be gripping on, you know, this rusty part or the normal part? Let me measure. Yeah, that's safe. One, two, three, four, 5/8. So do I have 5/8 clearance here? I do, all the way to the there. So let's send this thing all the way home. Why? Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Yeah, so my sealing surface is going to be there. So what's all the way home? The way home is really... One, two, three, four, 5. So it's a little over 5/8. I mean, it's going to protrude there. Yeah, let's install it how it was. So giving it that clearance gap. I don't love it, but these old timers designed it for like that for a reason. Alright, I have that seal installed, and I have it where I like it based on the depth of where the bearing is in that shaft. So the bare minimum, I'm roughly going to be clearing that. And when that's pressed on here, I mean, I got plenty of wiggle room. So I feel really good. I feel really good about that. So I'm going to clean this up. Ideally, we'd be putting new gaskets on. I don't have gaskets, and we're going to use make a gasket. Perfectly fine. There's no compression in here, so we're going to make a gasket around this seal and around this seal, and then we're going to reinstall it. I may not look like it, but I use some steel wool around the shaft just to get it clean. Did a little bit of wire brushing, but nothing too crazy. Make a gasket is on. Taking my time. I don't want to invert the seal, and the start of this is very crucial because of these the teeth here. So slide that on. It should get a little tighter as we get to the base. There we go. I think that should be good. I switched everything to stainless just for the corrosion resistance. I mean, I doubt they'll ever have to take this apart again, but if they do, hopefully the stainless helps there. Now, a lot of people may ask, like, oh, what's the torque setting on this? I don't. Honestly, you don't go crazy tight. These came off pretty easily. Oh, that's plenty tight. Plenty tight. Plenty tight. And that looks pretty good. So let's install the input shaft, and then we're going to fill this thing up and see if it's leaking. It's later in the day, and I let the RTV seal, so now I'm going to fill this crankcase up with oil. And I'm using Lucas. Lucas makes good stuff. I'm using heavier oil in this gearbox. This thing's going to take abuse. It's going to slap around. We're using heavier oil. And this old stuff, you can use the normal, 90 weight, but the heavy stuff is what it likes. Squirt some of this shit in here. I'm going to fill this up pretty good. I'm not going to have it gushing out, but I'm going to have it filled up. You don't want this thing, filled up to the max. Ideally, you want this thing filled halfway, similar to like your differential in your vehicle. This thing does hold quite a bit, and it does lube all the bearings, so it should take at least a full quart, no problem, but I got 2 quarts of this just in case. Alright, it's the next morning. It's very early. Man, nothing. Not a drip or anything. Sounds good and tight. This thing's ready to rip. So originally Eric had these big honking blades on the brush hog, and I still got them on top of the brush hog. But they're okay if you want to like mow down some fucking trees. But I've actually had this set of blades sitting forever. My father always called these tomahawk blades, probably because they look like tomahawks, but I have no clue what they're really supposed to be called. So I'm going to fire up the compressor, sharpen these down, and put a nice blade on them. Not too bad. Not too bad.